Good morning, folks. Spring is very near out here in central Nebraska, and it's almost time. Well, it is time. It's almost time to garden, but it is time to start our plants in the greenhouse. Last year, we started them 1 month and 1 week ahead of time, and the tomatoes were just almost too big. They were getting too tall for the cups that I had them in. So this year, I'm just going to go a month, and that is today. So if you've never gardened in the colder weather or regions where you have to worry about frost, you want to figure out what your last average frost date is. And for here, it's right around May 1st. I've been here in May before, and it has snowed in May, in the middle of May. So even that's not a perfect science, but when it comes time to plant out in the garden, of course, we'll look at the 10-day forecast before we do that and see if there's any upcoming weather that we need to worry about. But for today, we're going to get some tomatoes and peppers started in a greenhouse. So stick around and we'll show you how we're going to do it. Already warm in here. It's 40 degrees outside, and it's 55 degrees in here in the greenhouse. I always love coming here on little chilly morning days. So what we're going to do today is we have our tomatoes that we're going to plant and some pepper seeds. And we're not going crazy like we did last year. If you watched our videos, our gardening videos last year, we planted 19 different varieties of tomatoes, because being our first year in Nebraska, we wanted to figure out which tomato varieties did the best here in this climate, and we also wanted to figure out which ones we liked the best. I already had some that I liked previously, and we tried those out here. One of those varieties did actually do pretty well, and that was the Better Boy tomato, one of my favorites. If you watch our tomato review that we did last year, we discussed all the different varieties that we did. So we're definitely planting the Better Boy again. And then one of the 4 other varieties we're planting is the Celebrity tomato, which the previous owner of this property suggested to us. It was his favorite, and it did really well here. And then we're going to do the San Marzano tomato. And you can see these little seed packets we saved from last year. And the San Marzano tomato is very similar to a Roma tomato. It's a paste style tomato. If you're making sauce, there's a lot less juice and seeds in the paste tomatoes, and you don't have to cook them down quite so long. And then the Sweet 100 tomato, which is a very, very good cherry type tomato. Superb flavor and just very prolific when it fruits. It goes crazy. We had cherry tomatoes coming out of our ears last year. So the other thing we're going to plant early is our green peppers, because they need a jump start too. And we're doing some green bell peppers, we're doing some yellow bell peppers, and we're doing some jalapeno peppers, because we really love making that cowboy candy and stuff like that. So let's get started putting all this together. And if you've never done it before, stick around and you'll kind of see how to do it. It's really super easy. So we have our soil down here. You want to pre-moisten your soil, so we're going to do that right now. I'm going to throw some soil in one of our trays here, and I got a bucket of water. And we're going to moisten that all up so we don't have to water it after we plant them and disrupt the seeds. The soil's already going to be moist when we put it in our containers. Okay, we got our soil in our tray here. Putting our gloves on so when our hands get dirty we can just take them back off. So we're going to dump a little bit of water in here. can see the dirt sometimes almost repels the water. That's why it's good to pre-moisten it, because when you water it after the fact, the water just kind of wants to sit on top sometimes. Or if it's in a big pot, it'll kind of run down the sides. And you won't get a lot of water where you need it. So we're going to need some more water here on this end. And you want it nice and moist. You want it so you can kind of pick it up and it'll hold together, like if it's like raw hamburger or something. Looking pretty good. A good tip, at the end of the growing season or end of planting season, a lot of times you can get your potting soil on sale because they're trying to blow out the stuff that they have because they get new shipments in the spring. And pick that potting soil up while it's on sale and just store it. I've got a couple bags here in the greenhouse that we purchased last year, and then all this down here in the tub is from last year. There's a rock there. Any big sticks and debris and stuff you want to pull out, you don't need any of that. But this soil is looking really good. So we have our cups that we use. We use a styrofoam cup. This is about an 8-ounce styrofoam cup, and we poke a hole in the bottom so that we water from the bottom in one of these trays. So now that our mixture is mixed, we want to start putting it in our cups, but you don't want to fill your cups all the way, because the technique that you're going to use is you're going to fill your cups to the level where you want to plant your seeds, and then you're going to put a little bit of extra soil on top of the seeds rather than poking a bunch of holes. Because the technique that we use, we're just going to scatter some seeds here on top of this instead of doing like little individual plantings. So we need 4 cups, obviously, for our tomatoes, because we're doing a bulk planting here. All of the tomatoes that we're going to grow are going to be in this 1 cup. And then we come back later and we do what's called up potting. There may be 20 tomato plants in this cup. And we'll pull them out, we'll separate them, and then we'll plant each individual plant in its own cup. And it works really well. Tomatoes are very, very forgiving. I've planted up-potted some of the most puny little plants, because you'll always get ones that do better than others, and little tiny little puny plants, and I never thought they were even going to make it, and they sprouted just fine. It's amazing how resilient those little tomato plants are, and you can pull them apart because some of their roots will be together when you pull them out, and it's just amazing how they grow. Pack it in there. You don't want it to settle a lot. So that's enough for our tomatoes. Now we need to do 3 for our peppers. A little too much in that one. There we go. And I'm not packing it rock hard into the cups. I'm just making sure that it's full and not just, I don't want any air pockets in there is basically what you're trying to avoid. Can you hear that woodpecker over in the shelter belt? over there working hard this morning. So I'm going to take one of my gloves off now. And we're going to get our first batch of tomatoes. I have what's left in this commercial pack of the San Marzanos. So let me open that a little further and see what we got in here and make sure we got enough seed. If not, we have what we saved. And I think we have plenty of seed in there. So we're going to take our seed and we're just going to sprinkle it around the top of the cup here. And you want about 20 seeds, depending on how many you're going to grow, but I do a little extra because these were last year's seeds. So as you go through the years, your germination rate's going to go down. And there's nothing saying you can't plant last year's seeds. You can. They'll last 3, 4, 5 years. I keep them in the root cellar in a nice dry seed box, and they do just fine. So you can see if you have a couple seeds that are a little too close together, usually I got like a little ink pen or a pencil, and I separate them a little bit. Like there's 4 of them right there together. But that's what they look like right there. And then you're going to take a little bit more of your soil, place over the top, and don't smash it down crazy. You just want the soil to contact those seeds. It's not very much. You're only burying these tomato seeds about 1/4 inch. Alright, we got all of our tags ready. So we've labeled that one San Marzano. So let's go with our next variety. It's going to be our Celebrity Tomato. Now, I always plant extra because I give some away to friends and family. So we've got our seeds in there. Spread them apart a little bit. Get our little bit of soil put on top, not very much. So those are our Celebrity. So next will be our Better Boy. A lot bigger seeds. When I grab a tomato to save seeds from, I always make sure it's a really good specimen. If it's a little puny tomato or something like that, I don't want to grab seeds from that. Grab seeds from your best tomato in the garden. So hopefully it'll grow a little bit better genes. Sometimes you may come up with, maybe it's crossed with another tomato in your garden or something. You might come up with your own fantastic little tomato. Alright, the Sweet 100. Hands down my favorite cherry tomato. If you've never tried it, you definitely need to try. Your kids will love it. They'll go out and pick them right off the tomato vine and eat them right there in the garden. They won't even make it back to the house. The biggest problem I have planting like this is I never want to waste a little plant. If it germinates, I uppot it, and I end up with way too many plants. Pains me to throw things away, even though just one little seed and one little plant, still hard to do. So there's our Sweet 100. Let's do our green bell pepper. Now, most folks don't know a green bell pepper left on the vine to mature will turn into a red bell pepper. Same thing with jalapenos. If you leave them on the vine, they'll turn red on you. We'll put a staple in all these packages when we're done. So there's our green bell pepper. Go into our yellow bell pepper. I like the yellow bell pepper because it gives a really nice contrast when you're cooking. If you need some color in your dish, whoop, seeds wanted to get out of there, come flying out of there. That's plenty. There's our yellows done. Jalapeno. Now, if you can't stand the heat of a jalapeno, which I don't think they're a very hot pepper myself, but I like spicy foods. But if you don't like anything hotter than ketchup, they make a sweeter jalapeno. It's called a notapeno. And they do the same thing with a habanero. It's called, what's the habanero one called? I'm slipping, it's, I don't know. I'm trying to remember. Habanado, that's what it's called. And it's not as hot as a standard habanero. If you've never tasted habanero, it's not just a super hot pepper. It's actually got a really nice flavor. And I really enjoy the flavor of habanero peppers. A buddy of mine makes some salsa with habaneros, and he actually uses jalapenos also in the mix to kind of tone it down a little bit. But a fantastic flavor. So those habanados, as they call them, would probably be pretty good. We need to try them someday here in the garden. So there's our seed starts. We're going to come back probably this evening and we'll plant some herbs out here. And we'll pretty much, before we uppot, everything's going to be in one tray. So it doesn't take up a lot of space in the greenhouse. You can do this in your house if you have a grow light. You don't need a grow light until they sprout. But once they sprout, you need to put the grow light like right down on those. And I recommend running that grow light 24 hours a day. But find a little warm area in your house. Unless you got a nice sunshiny window, you could put them in the window. But make sure you turn your tray around every day because those plants will grow to the light. So we're going to put the rest of this soil back in our pot down here, and then we're going to get some water to put in this tray. So we put some water in our tray. We fill it, about 3/4 of an inch of water in the tray, and because those cups have holes in the bottom, they wick water up out of that tray, so they don't get too much water. The seeds won't rot, but they'll stay moist enough to germinate. And it's going to get really warm in here as soon as the sun gets all the way up or comes out from behind the clouds. It'll get to be 100 degrees in here today, so we don't have to worry about warming mats or anything like that. Now, being this is an uninsulated greenhouse, it's a little different than your normal greenhouses, as this greenhouse doesn't do any good at nighttime when the temperatures fall because it's uninsulated. It will keep some of the frost off, but you're still going to get the cold. So we have a little milk house heater that we keep in here, and it's on a timer. And we have a fan also that's on a timer. This heater shuts off around 10 o'clock, and then the fan kicks on at about 11 o'clock. Have our timers there, and then the fan will run all day to keep it from getting too hot in here. And then it'll kick off, and then tonight after dark the fan will come back on again, the heater fan. And even if it doesn't warm the whole greenhouse, it's creating a warm environment over here. So this is where we keep our starting plants, over here on this side. Now you're probably asking at this point, well, why do a greenhouse if you've got to go to so much that trouble to heat it and cool it? Well, the benefit is during the day. You're benefiting from the sunlight, and even if it stayed 30 degrees out here all day, if that sun was up, it would be plenty warm in that greenhouse. So it takes care of itself during the day. Also, the sunlight is the best thing for plants. People with the grow lights, if you've experienced those, even with the grow lights, sometimes your plants are going to get leggy when they're kept indoors like this. So sunshine is the best medicine for these new plants. And it's a lot easier to harden them off if they're already getting sunlight from day one when they germinate. So that's why we do a greenhouse. It also helps us extend our season if we want. If we want to plant some stuff, say like last year I planted some tomatoes in here for fall season. But by the time that season came around, I'd had so many tomatoes and we had so many canned and all that, I just kind of let them go. I didn't carry them over, but I may try to do it again this year. But it's really beneficial during the day, and that's why we do it. Now, the other plants that we plant in the garden, we don't have to start. Anything with a larger seed, like a squash or a corn or something like that, I find that direct sowing in the garden is just fine for those, and we'll sow those when we plant out in the garden around May 1st. We direct sow squash and corn and all that right into the garden and never have a problem. It's just those little tiny seeds are sometimes really difficult with the tomatoes and the peppers. And I like to get a start on because they take so long to grow during the season. I like to have them established already when I put them out in the garden, whereas your squash and your corn and all that have plenty of time to grow because they don't take quite as long to mature. So what I do is I come out in the morning after it's above freezing temperatures, and I am retired, so I'm here pretty much every day. And when the temperature starts rising in the greenhouse, I'll open the back window behind the fan, and I open this window here in the door. So when that fan kicks on, it can provide fresh air into the greenhouse, and it'll still be 100 degrees in this greenhouse. Now there are vents up above that have the automatic openers on them, but they only provide a limited amount of exhaust air, or let so much of the heat come out. I think the vents need to be a lot bigger for that to happen. Then I wouldn't have to mess with the windows and the door. But at night I will come out here before we turn in, go in the house for the evening. I'll shut that window and I'll shut this door after the sun kind of goes down. And then that way that heater will normally keep the inside of the greenhouse above freezing. We cleaned out our self-wicking grow tubs the other day, and then I brought some onions that were sprouting down in the root cellar, put them up here. We'll get some nice green onions out of those. I threw some red potatoes in this one here, so we'll have a tub full of potatoes later on in the season. And I'm actually going to put one more of these together today because Kelly bought some garlic she wants to grow out here. So let's go to the shop and we'll make another one of these. Now, we won't bore you making one of those grow tubs on video because we already got a video of that. And at the end of the video, we'll place a link to that video right up here. Okay, we've pre-moistened our soil a little bit, so when you want to water this thing, you just put your water hose down here in the bottom or in the tube, and then see that hole down there? See the water coming out? That means it's full. Now, because this soil was dry going in there, we'll have to do this a couple times today. But I'm going to go get the garlic and we'll poke some garlic down in there. We've separated our garlic and we're going to put everything in there about 3 inches apart or so, 3 to 4 inches. So that's going to be quite a bit of garlic. I'll show you what it looks like before you peel it. Some of these are already sprouting. But that's a head of garlic. And each one of those cloves will create a brand new head. So if you can imagine, all of those cloves right there will be its own head of garlic. It's going to be quite a bit of garlic. It had 3 heads in the package that we purchased from the store. And this is regular for planting garlic. Got it from the feed store. So this other head here, I'm going to poke in and around our green onions over here. So this tub here will have some onions and garlic. I'll just kind of put them in between those onions. So when you're planting your garlic, you want to put the root side down, the pointy side up. You can see where that was connected to the root on the bottom of the garlic head. So just poke a little hole with your finger, shove it down into where the top of the garlic is just barely covered. And that's all there is to it. Crazy easy. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. And then this is going to grow us some nice garlic. So I'll do all these and we'll come back when we're done. Alright, we're good to go. We've got everything all watered in, everything's planted. So now that this project's done, let me show you how far we've got on the fruit orchard here. You can see we've got this line of the orchard planted out. We've got all the trees in. So let's go through what we've got here. So this tree here is a Belle of Georgia peach. And the next one here is also a peach. This is a Reliance peach. It's supposed to be very, very cold hardy, more so than the other peaches that we've planted here. This is a Majestic peach. Also supposed to work in this area. Now this is a fruiting mulberry that we've planted. Compliments of one of our neighbors. They had a bunch of volunteers. So we went and got one and planted it here. This tree right here will get fairly good size. Really big, like the size of the very large apples over there. And Kelly kind of wanted it on this end to kind of shade the chicken coop over here. Plus, if it drops berries, the chickens will actually eat the berries off of them. And then this here, I believe, is a Bartlett Pear. We have another one over there, but I'll show you what happened. And then this here is another peach. You can tell I like peaches. This is a Hale Haven peach. They also have a peach called a Red Haven that grows here in Nebraska. You can see we already got signs of a blossom coming here. I don't know if you can see that in the camera. Bees are going to love that. So we have our 2 established apples here. And let's go see what this one is. I believe this is a cherry. Yes, this is a Montmorency cherry. And then our juniper or pine tree, whatever this is here. And this is our other Bartlett pear. But I had a little wide spot down here in the cage and a rabbit got in there. And you can see where that rabbit pretty much girdled that tree all the way around. So I don't know if this tree's going to make it. I haven't pulled it out yet because I'm going to give it every chance. But we do have another Bartlett pear planted. And this is a meteor cherry right here. And I'm still unsure what this bush is here, but most of it has kind of died. You can see it's really brittle. But there's a stem over here that looks kind of like some wild fruit. And it doesn't look like the other plants in there. So what I'm probably going to do is prune all this dead stuff back and leave this one nice stem growing to figure out what this tree is. I have some kind of fungus or whatever growing on here that we're going to prune off. There's a little bit up here that we'll prune off. And I did not dormant spray the fruit trees this year, but I will make for sure to do it next year. That'll help with any fungus and stuff like that. But that's our fruit orchard so far. Now, where those big apple trees over there, we're going to continue a line of fruit trees over there in line with those apple trees. I got some pluots coming. If you've never heard of a pluot, it's a cross between a plum and an apricot. It looks like a plum, but it's a lot firmer. It's not real mushy and the juice doesn't all run down your face, but they're really good. And they will grow in zone 5. And my buddy Matt has acquired 3 of them for me that I'm going to be picking up from him here real soon. So we'll get those planted when we get them back here. And then over here, I'm going to redo the grape trellis here. That's just kind of thrown together from last year because the grapes never got pruned before. But we've since started pruning them. I still need to prune them. I need to get that done this afternoon. But we'll redo that grape trellis, make it a nice trellis. You can see we're coming right along on the chicken coop here. We're almost done with this outer area. We have all our runner or rafter type boards up. Now all we have to do is put in the purlins across this way. And those will be on 2-foot thinners, and we're going to lay them flat. They're 2x4s. So every 2 foot there's going to be a purlin, and that'll support the wire up on top really well. But we're probably going to get into that today too. So lots going on. Spring is springing. It hasn't all the way sprung yet. And I will say on most of these fruit trees like peaches, they will grow here in Nebraska, but you're not going to get a crop every year. You're only going to get a crop on the years where the growing conditions are favorable, where you don't get a late frost. If you get a late frost, you're not going to get peaches, and you may not get other fruit either. Like our small apple trees here on this side of the garden, we didn't get any apples at all this last year because we got a late frost. However, the larger trees on the other side of the garden had a great crop. So it all depends on the year and the growing conditions in that year. So some years you'll get peaches, some years you will not. But we're okay with that. So hope you enjoyed our little tour around the garden, getting things done this morning. See if I can get you out of the wind. We got a lot more to do. I got to get the garden cleaned up, tilled up, subsoiled. We still got to up-pot our tomatoes and peppers that we did earlier today. But things are starting to turn green. The grass is starting to turn green finally. We got some moisture the other day. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. Come back and see us at Mark Kelly Farm. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram. Love you guys. Talk to you later.